The following TGC program may not be rebroadcast or otherwise used without the express written consent of the Government Channel 5 or the City of Athens.
Welcome to Spotlight. I'm Carla Mullinex. Now take a look at the quiet neighborhood behind me. It might not seem possible that something terrible could happen here, but that's exactly the nature of emergencies. They're unexpected. In this edition of Spotlight, we'll take a look at how the City of Athens prepares for emergencies, some more dangerous than others, and how you can be sure your family is prepared should an emergency happen. That's coming up on Spotlight.
For Spotlight, here's Carla Mullinex.
It's important for Athens residents to know how to handle emergencies in the home. Fortunately, Athens is equipped with the 911 system. No one wants to use it, but just in case, Spotlight's Cosette Smith tells us how it works.
Picture this. You're fixing dinner in your kitchen when a fire breaks out on your stovetop. If this happened to you, would you know what to do without panicking?
911, what is your emergency?
911 Emergency is a system that many cities take for granted, but until 3 years ago, Athens County did not have the system. The total time it takes for the dispatcher to determine the caller's problem and location is about 45 seconds. Athens County 911 averages 36 calls a day. 911 Emergency is housed here in the Athens County Sheriff's Building on West Washington Street. There are some uses the system is appropriate for, but other things 911 should not be used for.
Anytime that there is a situation that requires immediate assistance, then a person should call 911. Immediate assistance meaning if you see a fire, if you see a medical emergency, or medical emergency is reported to you, or if you see a crime in progress, then you should call 911. Also, I would tell Athens County residents, if you're not sure about the nature of the call, then call 911 and let the dispatcher know what's going on, and they can then make a determination on the urgent need of the call or not. If you have a need for assistance that is not urgent in nature, okay, if you come home from work and somebody's flattened your mailbox and you need to have a report made for that, that's not necessarily a 911 call. If you see somebody flatten your mailbox, then you should call 911.
The people who run the 911 system need help from many different departments to work effectively. Some of those include law enforcement agencies, fire departments, and EMS, or emergency medical services. The 911 system is composed of many things one might not think of. TDD, or Telephone Device for the Deaf, enables all dispatchers to communicate with the hearing impaired. TDD has been intact since 911 started 3 years ago. If a hearing impaired person has the device in her home, she can use the system. When she calls 911, musical tones will play and, "You have reached Athens County 911, what is your emergency?" The dispatchers for 911 have installed a line so they can practice using the device to stay proficient in the language. Language Line is an interpreting service based in California. Because Athens County is so culturally diverse, Language Line can be used in over 45 different languages to communicate with people who do not speak English. When someone calls 911 and the dispatcher recognizes an unfamiliar language, she will immediately connect the caller to Language Line. The interpreter will explain to the caller that Language Line has been connected and try to determine the problem. The connection to the system takes only 30 seconds. Emergencies and accidents happen all the time. If you should encounter one, make sure you know what to do. Reporting for Spotlight, I'm Cosette Smith.
Visit the Athens County Sheriff's Department for more information on the 911 system. Now, boil orders are emergencies perhaps more frequently deemed nuisances by the people they affect. They happen a lot because the Athens water pipes are nearly a century old. Spotlight's Nadia Bashir explains what's happening to this aging system.
It's a part of your everyday life. You drink it, you bathe in it, you cook with it. But what happens when an emergency strikes your water supply? When a water main breaks, the process begins with a line locate. In a line locate, the Utilities Protection Service of Ohio calls in the break. The Athens City Garage then marks the facilities that belong to Athens so that the contractors will not damage city lines. Once a line locate has been issued, the water running through the broken pipes is shut down. The City Garage then digs up the line, fixes it, and puts it back into service. The process wasn't quite so easy for the West Union Street break early last September. 1 million gallons of water came spewing out before it could be shut down to the broken pipes. The problem is the material underneath the pipes, known as backfill. Clay is the backfill for the Union Street pipes. Extremely acidic in nature, the clay eats away at metal pipes. This, combined with old pipes, made the Union Street break inevitable. Working around the clock with help from surrounding areas, city officials managed to fix the break in record time. But getting a broken water main back into service doesn't stop with fixing a pipe.
Every time we cut a piece of main out to replace it, we have bacteria testing we have to do, chlorine testing, and then we make sure everything's safe.
Samples from newly fixed pipes are brought here to the city lab for testing. Water samples are placed in petri dishes and incubated for 24 hours. Specifically, lab officials look for total coliform bacteria.
The total coliform bacteria itself is not necessarily disease-causing or pathogenic, but it is an indicator that possible contamination has entered the water that could be disease-causing or pathogenic.
If even one speck of coliform bacteria appears in a petri dish, contamination is considered a possibility. City officials issue a boil order until further testing can be done to detect and treat specific contamination. In most cases, water main breaks pass bacteria testing and are back in service in a matter of hours. Reporting for Spotlight, I'm Nadia Bashir.
If you're under a boil order, tune in to the government channel Billboard to find out when your water is safe to drink again. Now, a recurring emergency in Athens, though not nearly as frequent, is the annual Halloween street party. 11 ordinances and $50,000 per year are devoted to the celebration. Spotlight's Jessica Goddard finds out how the city handles what some officials call an annual disaster.
Halloween in Athens. For some people, it's the biggest party of the year. An estimated 30,000 people enter the city to celebrate what's been called the Mardi Gras of the Midwest. But for city service employees, it means time, work, and money in preparation for the event. Planning for Halloween begins with City Council. They decide what legal action they want to take, for example, closing streets or bandstand placement. Then City Service Safety Director Wayne Key works with city departments to develop a plan, which maps out areas of the city that will be affected by the Uptown Halloween celebration. The plan also states personnel required in each area and what their duties will be. Key works closely with the police department, which is most visible during the celebration. Every officer in the department is on duty during the Halloween weekend, as well as about 50 officers from outside agencies who come in to provide extra assistance. Beginning Thursday evening, officers bag certain street meters to make room for dumpsters and porta-johns. Additional meters are bagged Friday afternoon to allow certain buses to run. Lieutenant Tom Pyle says the department holds a mass meeting Friday evening for all officers. Among other things, they make transportation arrangements to the regional jail in Nelsonville.
The real build-up starts at 9 o'clock Friday evening, and we'll have a good portion of our officers in. All the mounted assistants that we'll have in will be in town and will be on patrol at 9 o'clock. Liquor control will have their agents in town at that time.
Pyle says that Friday night gives the police department an opportunity to feel out the crowd and get an idea of what to expect of Saturday's celebration. He says the attitude of the crowd changes each year and has a direct impact on how police respond.
Some Fridays are really boring, and some Fridays we get knocked over, so to speak. So it's kind of a hurry up and wait and see what happens. That's the game plan, but we will have officers on duty and ready to respond to whatever is given us.
Officers get off duty early Saturday morning at around 3 a.m. when things calm down. 2 officers stay on duty to transport arrested people from jail to court. The judge runs a special session of court on Saturday to allow people to make a plea or post bond. 3 officers usually stay on duty to help with towing. Around noon, the city reroutes traffic to block off the streets that hold the heart of the celebration. By 7 o'clock, all law enforcement agents are back on duty. They begin with another mass briefing where they lay out the plan for that evening. Pyle says the plan basically stays the same each year, addressing new problems as they arise.
Officers are told simply to hit the outskirts of the crowd and try to maintain the peace. They are instructed not to enter the crowd because it is unsafe due to its size and the congestion of the streets. At 3 a.m. Sunday morning, officers begin asking people to step up on the sidewalk and clear the street. City Service Safety Director Wayne Key sums up the weekend from his perspective.
It just takes a lot of people a lot of time way in advance of Halloween to get things sorted out in terms of who's going to be doing what where. And then it's a massive effort to clean up afterwards. And you just cope with it. It's business as normal.
Come Sunday, the real work begins. City officials evaluate the weekend. Law enforcement counts up arrests. Service crews begin cleaning and clearing the city of trash. And planning for Halloween 1999 begins. Reporting for Spotlight, I'm Jessa Goddard.
When Spotlight continues, we'll hear what the mayor has to say about emergencies. Stay with us.
Spotlight will return after these messages.
It's my birthday. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, I told you, don't be bringing that weak stuff in here. Yeah. Who's the man? Who's the man?
Exercised lately? Why would anybody give someone they don't know a gift? They do it because this gift saves lives. And the need for it is desperate. We need over 20,000 people to give this precious gift every day. Please give blood. There's a life to be saved right now. Call the American Red Cross at 1-800-GIVE-LIFE.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I recently spoke to Mayor Abel about emergencies in the city that don't necessarily cause danger. Here's what he had to say.
It generates more along the lines of noise, housing, litter, and sidewalks, I think, are becoming more of a concern to us. I think part of the problem that we have in Athens is that we've become too mobile of a community. It's not, the area around the university has become almost exclusively rental housing. That's a problem both for students and for long-term residents because I think as every student knows from visiting friends, different landlords keep their properties up to different standards, so to speak. So we're well along our way to trying to improve the quality of housing within Athens, but it is a slow process.
Mayor Abel says damaged curbs and sidewalks are also a primary concern.
We've got a lot of areas in town that need that, but we need to work out with City Council a funding mechanism for that because it is the responsibility of the property owner to keep care of the sidewalk in front of your house, and it's the city's responsibility to keep care of the curb in the street. So from that standpoint, many of our elderly population can't just come up with $1,000 to redo, say, a sidewalk in front of their house, so we need to talk about some kind of financing program for that, that they could pay it off over a 3 or 4 year period, but that'll have to be approved by council. water system is another one, that if you're in the certain areas that we're having some difficulties in getting water line breaks frequently, those specific areas, you know, have lots of concerns about that. Water runoff is another concern that we're hearing about. We have a list of about 25 or 30 stormwater projects that we would like to address over the next 20 years maybe, but as funds become available. And what council is also going to have to decide at some point is, once you get a stormwater utility master plan in place, is do you do it as funds become available, or do you go out and say, okay, we know we're going to have this flow of funds for the next, say, 10 years, how much could that do us on a bond, and then you go out and build those projects that you can under that, but that in essence wraps up all of your money, except there's some contingencies for a few years. But I think it's a direction the city, you know, has to take.
I asked Mayor Abel how national emergencies like the shaky stock market and global economy affect Athens. He said Athens' pocketbook may not be affected the way other cities are, because almost 40% of Athens workers are government employees. That ranks Athens with only 31 other counties in the nation.
In essence, say your primary base is government employment, and that is usually fairly stable. So as long as the university maintains a stable enrollment, our core economy won't be affected by the stock market.
But penny pinching is always a concern.
Just overall, we've positioned ourselves so that without any tax increases, we've more looked at increasing the cost of providing services to try to cover the real costs of it.
What about Y2K?
The police department's computer system needs an upgrade. In fact, it needs 2 upgrades from its vendor. So that's one that's going to have to be done to comply with the year 2000. In the water and sewer area, we have everything in what we call a telemetry system, where all the pumps, all of the lift stations, all of the water wells, all the storage tanks are all linked together with a computer program that is not year 2000 compliant, and we're talking about $55,000 to upgrade that, to make it compliant. That is another thing we got to do next year. Our overall computer system in the auditor's office, the auditor assures me that it is compliant with the year 2000.
What do you want to see?
I want to see more jobs, I want to see better housing, and I want to see a retirement community for senior citizens. But I also want to see us working together as a community to establish, you know, those things that we want.
Next, we'll see how the city practices its emergency response skills as Spotlight continues.
Spotlight will return after these messages.
Chemistry class led me to a life of crime. I catch murderers, rapists, and thieves with a microscope. Help your daughter become a scientist. Instead of a tea set, get her a chemistry set. Look at the boring job I got from being a science nerd. Expect the best from a girl. That's what you'll get.
In America, you are not required to offer food to the hungry or shelter to the homeless. There is no ordinance forcing you to visit the lonely. In fact, nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have to provide anything for anybody. Thank you for all you've given. Imagine what more could do.
You are 100% unadulterated energy. You have no choice but movement. You aren't acted on. You are action. You have the power to make the world a better place. You already know how to do it. Volunteer now for the American Red Cross. Call your local chapter for details.
Welcome back. Well, we hear about emergencies all over the nation in the big cities, but in a small town like Athens, it may seem that life-threatening events can't happen here. Aaron Kenzel shows us how our city safety officials prepare for bomb threats.
Though you may never hear about it, bomb threats do occur in the city of Athens. City officials know it's important to prepare for these threats should they become a reality. One recent exercise helped emergency officials hone their skills.
The Athens Police Department, Fire Departments, the Southeastern Ohio Emergency Medical Systems, and the Ohio University Police Department conducted a bomb threat training exercise this summer on West State Street. The drill began early in the morning when someone discovered a suspicious abandoned van in an empty field. Soon the van began to smoke and the police department hit the scene to investigate. They discovered a realistic-looking explosive and some empty barrels inside the van. They called the fire department, who roped off the area, taking a defensive stance to prevent injury. Fire Department Chief Bob Troxel says these disaster drills are quite common.
We have drills every now and then, and basically the reason we have drills is to point out deficiencies that we may have. And certainly that's why we did this one also, is to see where we were proficient in certain areas and where we were deficient in certain areas.
The drill exercise was expected. The police chief and fire chief were out of town to provide realism to the situation. The main goal was to see how the people who were second in command would respond to such an emergency.
Athens rarely has teams large enough to completely handle hazardous situations. Because of this, a defensive stance is always taken to protect the community. This may involve evacuation, sealing off the area, or stopping traffic. Officials take necessary measures to keep the citizens from being injured. After the 3-hour drill this summer, state officials came in to evaluate the situation. Overall, they were pleased. They did offer some suggestions for improvement, which will be incorporated into future drills. Chief Troxel says the feedback was positive.
And all in all, these are always good experiences if you learn something from them. And I think that's the goal, is to be able to do things a little better than you did before the drill.
More drills of this kind are expected in the future. After a good evaluation, Athens Safety Services feel confident in handling a real threat. Circumstances of a bomb threat can never fully be prepared for, but simulated practice and a good plan of action will help these departments deal with an actual emergency. Reporting for Spotlight, I'm Erin Kinsel.
When fires, floods, tornadoes, and other disasters strike in Athens County, volunteers are ready to take action. Those volunteers are members of the Athens County Red Cross chapter. More than 400 people volunteer their time every year to fight disasters in the state of Ohio. The county's Red Cross chapter is a 24-hour emergency center which offers assistance in disaster situations. Also, it offers bloodmobiles and education on disaster preparedness and response. Red Cross Director Sandy Shirey says it is a supply-driven organization. She says the shelter located on May Street in Athens is a storage area for materials such as cots, blankets, clothing, and first aid kits. These materials are taken to the scenes and volunteers do whatever they can to help out.
We have people who go to the scene of a fire, and they bring hot or cold beverages for the firefighters and emergency responders, and they also see to the needs of the family members. The family members may need clothing on the spot, they may need shelter for the night, and if they can't spend the rest of the night at a friend or neighbor's house, we will put them up in a motel for that night, maybe a couple of extra nights, while they're figuring out what they're going to do next.
But fires are not the only emergencies the Red Cross covers. The chapter has mobile units that are taken on-site to larger disasters around the state. Even though Athens chapter jurisdiction is only Athens County, when a disaster hits, they may be called to go anywhere in the state. During the last couple of years, Athens County has had more fire disasters than surrounding counties. In the past 18 months alone, Athens County has seen 37 fires and 3 floods. In the event of one of these disasters, Shirey says part of the aid they provide helps maintain mental health by adding a little cuddly comfort.
Stuffed animals you definitely need after a fire. I've been amazed in 13 years with the Red Cross, even adults need a stuffed animal to hang on to after a fire. It's just, no matter how many times you're at the scene, you never get used to this. It's just devastating to stand there and watch that smoke come up and that home go to the ground. And for the people who live there, you can imagine how horrible it would be. And the stuffed animals are really part of our disaster mental health effort. They really comfort people.
Reporting for Spotlight, I'm Gina Long.
The Red Cross is funded by donations and annual membership campaigns, and the equipment mobile units were donated by the Ohio State Legislature. Well, we hope you never have to deal with an emergency, but if you do, we hope this edition of Spotlight helped you prepare. That's all the time we have. I'm Carla Mullinex. Thanks for joining us.
For everyone at Spotlight, I'm Dennis Cometti. Good night.